Are you thinking about hiring a Shopify developer to build your store quickly? Before you go ahead and do that, you might want to ask yourself a few questions. Are you paying for a website growth strategy or just someone to follow instructions? Do you actually know what you need to build? And is your business even ready for a developer? I've seen many different business owners make a ton of mistakes in this area, and it definitely costs not only them personally, but also cost their business a lot of different issues in the short term and also in the long term. They either hire too early, they get the wrong developer, or they end up wasting thousands of dollars for a product or service or something that the market doesn't even like. In this video, I'll be going over 7 different checkpoints you can follow so you don't make the same mistakes as what I've seen in my own experience. And ultimately, I will help you decide whether or not you needed a Shopify developer. And if you actually need one, and we've determined that, well, what kind of Shopify developer do you need? I would say checkpoint number 1, business is too small. It's too early, it's too young, it's not big enough to actually make an impact on what is going on in the business. If you have no revenue, no sales, no test on product market fit, do not hire a developer. It's generally a mistake, it's generally a problem. And ultimately, what you should really be doing is just saying, does the market want this? In my experience, it all comes down to the product or service fit with the market demand and supply, right? So let's say you have a brand new product. It's never been seen before. Ultimately, you put it out there. If you do actually put it out there and your website looks like crap, if the market just at the very basic level understands what the product or service does and they buy it, even though your website is crap, that means it's a really good fit. Ultimately, what I've seen though is what has happened is people are like, oh, I need a website, therefore I need a developer. And so what ends up happening is they hire a developer. The developer just makes all these strategic market fit decisions, how you should say something, the copy, the way something is positioned, and ultimately they don't really know if that's going to work or not because really they're just a developer. They're not a entrepreneur themselves necessarily. They might just be a freelancer. They may work for an agency or something like this. They may have no experience in the industry that they're actually working on, that your website is actually, or your product or service is actually positioned in. So ultimately, before you go spending thousands, I would recommend just getting some revenue, some sort of idea. Does the market want this thing? Is it going to be something that people are going to order no matter what, even if my website looks like crap, they never heard of me before, or something like this? So I would use a premium theme. If that's you and you're saying, hey, I'm in the no revenue position, you should use Shopify's built-in tools. You should pick a premium Shopify theme and you should use some third-party applications and then just try to figure out, okay, is this thing gonna work or not, right? This is how I'd recommend running a lot of new businesses is just testing. Not really spending a whole lot of money or time, just throwing something together and putting it out there. Actually today, inside my own company, that's something we're doing right now, is just saying, hey, this is an idea, let's just throw it out there and see if the market responds. If they do, great. If not, great. Spent like an hour on it, right? Very, very low effort, but we will put and invest more time if it actually sticks and the market actually says, yes, we like this and we want it. This is the other thing I was referencing before. This is checkpoint number 2. Developers may lead you astray. They are not strategists. They are not entrepreneurs. They are just developers, right? And I'm not trying to say this to put them down necessarily. I'm not trying to say this to say all developers are like this. I'm just saying for the most part, the developers that you're hiring in this category, I'll build your website for $500, $300, even like $1,000, $2,000. They're likely going to just say, well, the person asked me for a website, so I'm just going to throw something together kind of haphazardly and not really think too much about it. Because ultimately what you are paying for is what you are getting. And what you are getting is a website, a functioning website, but you're not getting business strategy. You're not getting market fit. You're not getting who's your target demographic and who you're actually selling this to and what makes this product or service so different from all the others. So ultimately, this is where it can set you back because you're ultimately saying, I'm just going to hire somebody random that doesn't know anything about my industry or space and hope it works out. Right? You need to make sure that when you actually do hire a developer, that you have that messaging on point, that you have that brand strategy, that you have that market sort of perception or how you need to say things and what offer is it actually that you're putting out into the economy and are people responding to that? You need to figure that out first because developers don't think like business owners. They just think like developers. That is definitely one thing. It's almost like I would say, I'm going to hire a first baseman to coach my team. And it's like, well, they play first base. Like they know how to catch the ball, run to the bag and hold their glove out, but they don't understand how to play left field. They don't understand how to pitch. They don't understand the X's and O's of baseball. Maybe they don't really even understand, okay, I need to put in my different runner because he runs faster and it's worth the risk right now, right? Like there's a bunch of different other components of baseball outside of playing first base that person may be missing. So kind of think of it that way, that I'm hiring like a specialist, but really what I need is somebody that understands the full landscape of my business, not just a person that plays first base in this example. And ultimately, I'm not blaming the developer either. I'm not necessarily saying they're a bad person. I'm just saying that's not really what they're being hired to do, especially at a lower end rate or a cheaper type of developer, right? And this is what we're looking to make sure that we're not doing that out of the gate before we even have tested things. This is the other thing. Code is just one piece of this puzzle, right? There is so many other components and pieces to a website. There's UX, UI. There's, how do I structure my data? How do I structure my products? I have 3 different colors. Do I separate those out on a page, or do I put those together and kind of like let the person pick? It kind of depends. There are other integrations, other tools. How am I going to ship this thing? How am I going to produce this thing? How am I going to manage inventory? All these different things, usually a web developer is not thinking about. There are so many other pieces, not only to the website, but also to like your tech stack and your strategy, your integrations, your automations, that need to be considered when building out a solution like this. And ultimately, again, going back to my example, they really only generally know one thing, which is like, I can build a website, but maybe they didn't think about like maintaining it after the fact. Maybe they didn't think about, oh, I need to automate or integrate with this other tool. So a lot of time they're kind of taking more of like a tunnel vision, single-minded approach to building something, when ultimately that's not really what they should be doing. And they should really be kind of spreading out the gaze and saying, okay, what are we actually dealing with here? What does this look like? Cheaper developers are not really going to solve these sorts of problems, because ultimately that's not really what you've hired them to do. What you really need typically for these medium-sized businesses, I think even if you're like a 6-figure business, you kind of have things somewhat figured out. Yeah, you can get away with a cheap developer. I would say if you're kind of scaling beyond 7 figures on it in an e-commerce business, or really any business, you probably need some sort of fractional CIO, so Chief Information Officer, who can see the big picture. You probably need a team that understands conversions, that understands funnels and marketing, and actually a dev team that can actually execute on the strategic initiatives versus just build. We've interacted with tons of businesses that are like, hey, I have this developer, but like it's not really working. And I'm like, well, they're not really looking at things as a fractional CIO would, which is ultimately what a lot of these businesses, after they get to that certain point, that's actually what they need. And ultimately, that's what we do at DexTech. This is not supposed to be a sales pitch. I'm just trying to like have everybody avoid this issue of hiring some sort of cheap developer in the beginning and putting themselves in a conundrum, or they're sitting there with 7 figures saying, hey, like, I don't think my website, or I don't think my developer is working out. And it's like, yeah, that's because your company might be outgrowing that developer, or outgrowing that, even the agency, right? Even agencies kind of make this mistake where like, okay, what do I do? Okay, let me go do it. It's like, yes, you can get those all the time, but ultimately what you can't really buy, or what you can't really, it's very difficult to find. It's also hard to even do with AI, which is understanding full tech stack strategy, right? That's something you can't really put AI to. This is the other thing that business owners run into, which is like, oh my gosh, like I hired this web developer. They're supposed to be running the project. They're supposed to be doing all these things. But ultimately what I find myself doing as a business owner is having to manage them. I need to put deadlines. I need to get estimates. I need to get all these different things put together that you would normally do on projects. And it's like, wait, well, now I have a new job. I need to manage my developer. I need to become an IT manager now all of a sudden, and understand how IT projects work. And, we need to do testing, then we need to do user accepted testing, and like make sure things are working, and test things in many different ways. It's like, gosh, what just happened? I became a project manager. I became a quality lead. I became a UX lead. I became a strategist, and I became like a product owner. It's like, gosh, that's a lot to take on as a young business, even doing like, let's say high 6 figures, low 7 figures, right? It's exhausting as a business owner. I've been there myself, and we've kind of like trained our team in such a way where like this doesn't happen anymore, because we have all these functions baked in. We know what needs to happen basically. But ultimately, a lot of developers don't know this. They just build it and say like, there you go, take it. I hope it works. It's like, oh, okay. The other thing too that you have to envision and like try to figure out is like, should I hire this person full time? Well, that might mean it's like 6 figures. Here in the US, it's like a 6-figure job. I got payroll taxes, I got benefits, and now I got HR concerns. Like if I say the wrong thing in the wrong way, then they can come after me legally. There's ramp up time. Hey, I don't really understand the business. I don't understand the product, right? There's a bunch of different things that come along with actually hiring a developer full time. Let's just say it's even like 60, 70 grand, which I think is way on the low end. You're probably not going to get like great quality at that level. But ultimately, what this still means is that you're having to manage someone, you're taking on additional risk, you're paying more money out of pocket for payroll, and you have some sort of like HR sort of thing hanging over your head all the time, right? Oh, are they happy? Are they motivated? It's like, oh my Lord, like, okay, save me the trouble. I'm already thinking about it. I'm like, gosh, okay, that sounds like a lot to manage. And I know as a business owner, I don't want to do that. Ultimately, the other thing that happens with a lot of these developers is thinking about short term. Okay. You are coming to them with a problem saying, hey, I need this website built. They are not asking, well, okay, what happens when we build that website? Like, do you need support after that? Do you want to build landing pages? Are you going to do A/B testing? Are you going to do marketing campaigns? Am I going to have to modify or tweak things after the fact? They're just like, okay, yeah, I need to build a website. Let's do that. Let's go build a website. They're not really thinking about scalability. Hey, if the website grows, if my product mix grows and I have to like start updating things, well, how does that change my navigation? And how does that change my maintenance on the back end of Shopify? Not really a great project or great sort of thing for a solo developer typically to take on unless they have some sort of strategic experience, some sort of managerial experience, or some sort of entrepreneurship experience. Good news, I have all three of those, but ultimately a lot of solo/freelancer developers, even within my own company, they have to be managed in such a way to where it's like, wait, no, you need to do this first, and then yes, down the road, we're going to do this, and that. Or they get off track and it's like, wait, you're getting a little scattered. This is what we're doing right now. That's actually down the road. So it's kind of like sometimes you even find developers who are getting ahead of themselves a little bit. Oh, I need to build all this stuff. And it's like, well, we don't need to build any of that. We could just build like a bit of a stopgap, a stop fix, right? So, and this is why you should absolutely not hire a cheap developer. These are all the 7 reasons as to why you should not do that. And ultimately, a lot of the time, the common mistakes we see is, one, the business is too young, right? You have no revenue, you have no sales, you have no product market fit, right? That's a big mistake I see a lot of the time. We even have told people, hey, don't work with us yet. You're not ready. You might need to hire someone else or just do it yourself. That's one big mistake that we see. I think another mistake we see is a business gets bigger and bigger over time and you're kind of sticking with the same person. A lot of time the business will outgrow that developer. And sometimes it's too late. They come to us and say, oh my gosh, look what we have. And it's like, what is going on? Like we had a project where they came to us and said, hey, this is how we're managing our data. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is like a disaster. They're having to manage things like 5-6 different times in 3 different places or something like this. So ultimately that's why, it's can be very costly to hire a cheap developer. This is why we're trying to educate basically new business owners and even like younger business owners that like, hey, this is something to be watchful for, right? It's like, at some point you're going to need some sort of like strategy, some sort of chief information officer or chief technology officer to help you grow as a company. And a lot of the time these cheap developers become a bottleneck on the business instead of being help you grow, basically. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate your time. This is Luke Tull with DexTech signing out.